we saw the tragic beauty of the fall of intelligence. It seems to be so simple as falling asleep. For an intelligent person to lose all that intelligence apparently and to become stupid and to behave in an absolutely stupid way. It's so simple. One can, as I said the other day, observe this in oneself every morning. As you wake up, if you remain a bit alert, it's obviously not so easy to remain absolutely alert all the time, then you are enlightened, Buddha. Even if you remain a little alert, you will at least see the fun of how the descent into degradation takes place. The fall of Adam happens every morning. From the moment you come out of sleep, when there is just a seed, one doesn't even know what it is all about. And then gradually it expands into me, my body, my bed, my room, my this, my that, my... And how, what originally is a conventional thing, something that is convenient to make our lives easier. Which is your seat? Oh, this is my seat. There's no harm saying it. But this expression that is brought in merely to make our life a bit more comfortable, convenient, somehow becomes reality. And thus, what we think we possess slowly yawns, and we get into it, we are possessed by it. This is a daily feature. There is nothing speculative about it. There is nothing philosophical about it. If one is, and there is no dogma or theory or doctrine involved in it, it's, if you are awake to this, you see it every day. We saw also the other day that in what we consider to be the waking state, something is fast asleep. When the world is very much awake in your awareness, the self is asleep. That is, self-knowledge is asleep. You don't know what you are when you are very busy investigating what somebody else or something else is. So, when the world is awake, self-knowledge is asleep. And in what is known as deep sleep state, there is an intelligence that is awake. We don't know whether it is self-knowledge or non-self-knowledge, we have no idea. There is an intelligence that is awake in deep sleep, even though the body and some part of the brain seem to be fast asleep. These two are very much like 360 degrees and zero. There was a great yogi in Tibet called Milarepa. He has composed and sung a very beautiful song in which he says there are two completely opposite states which look very much alike. Please be careful. Devotion to Guru, for instance, and a slavish mentality can both be the same. Be careful. Sleep and samadhi may be very similar. Be careful. Madness and enlightenment may be very similar. Be careful. So here again we find that these two extremes, the Bija Jagrat where you are asleep as it were, with merely the seed of a potential arising of the world being present, and at the other end where you are completely asleep, but not physically, not mentally. The intelligence is asleep, and the world and all the hallucinations become real, as it were. One is the operation of intelligence, the other is the operation of ignorance. For in deep sleep, these two sleep together. A mighty intelligence and total ignorance, they sleep together in your sleep. How does one distinguish between the two? That in our waking state, how do we ensure that instead of the seed of the world waking up, it is the intelligence that is waking up? What is the difference between the ordinary daily waking up, where the seed of world perception wakes up with us, and the awakening of intelligence, where something else wakes up? What is the difference? The difference, to put it oversimplistically, is when the intelligence is awake, the world and your own thoughts, your own imaginings, your own hallucinations, your own opinions, and even your own prejudices are seen for what they are. And you live intelligently. You follow the conventions, of course, why not? You follow the social conduct of the place you live in, just as if you go to a cold country, you put on a jersey. If you go to a hot country, you take it off. We don't need to call this conformism or non-conformism. There is nothing to it. You merely become aware of what goes on around and act accordingly. But you are aware of all that. This is merely a matter of convention. There is no truth in it. And when ignorance rules, to you, what became necessity as a matter of convenience or convention becomes the truth. So that, of course, this is your seat. And you get up and go to the bathroom and come back and you find somebody else has taken the seat. Then you look at it and say, no, it was not my seat. I sat there, and when somebody asked, is that your seat? I said, yes. Or, which is your seat? I pointed to that, this is my seat. If somebody else has sat in that place, it has already become that somebody else's seat. It is no longer mine. Mine was merely a sort of convention, so that I don't have to go to war recapturing my seat. But when ignorance rules, you will give these conventional realities the status of absolute truth. You will fight for them. Fight for silly things. My opinion, my point of view, my concept of God, or what I think is the only sole true religion in this world. Fight. Kill. That must be true religion, because they kills both of you. It kills both of you. This is the only touchstone or test of the distinction between the operation of intelligence and the operation of ignorance. In the shadow of ignorance, in the darkness of ignorance, what was assumed for the sake of convenience, an opinion, an idea, becomes more valuable than truth, becomes the truth. And when intelligence operates, there is an investigation into it, and that intelligence is quite clear that these are conventions, they do not have the status of truth. At the same time, one sees in one's own life that whatever truth is, or let us put it this way, the operation of intelligence does not give rise to problems, does not produce disharmony within oneself or between oneself and one's environment. The operation of intelligence does not create any problem. And if it does create a problem, be careful. There is a confusion, or there is a mixture of intelligence and ignorance. And where ignorance operates, there must be problems. Problems, disharmony, conflict, violence, all these are the direct children, descendants of ignorance. Now, the return journey. How do we return to a state of awakened intelligence? How do we wake this intelligence up when it has moved away from its own center, moved into the world which it created early in the morning, moved so far away from the center that the world seems to be a solid reality, and this intelligence is fast asleep? How do we return to the source? I must first confess that though the fall and now the return have sort of been mapped out into 7 stages, Vasistha, as such in his own teachings, does not recognize any serious step by step procedure and technique. If in these two instances some sort of a technique or step by step procedure has been taught, that's only because he doesn't stick to any particular doctrine. It is neither nor. Are there any techniques? No. Are there no techniques? Oh, yes. Both ways. There are no absolutes except the absolute itself. And here again, those of you who study the Yoga-Vasistha might find these steps mentioned in two places, and the descriptions are slightly different. I have also deliberately left it in a confused state, merely to indicate that there are no absolutes, that there is no dogma here, there is no philosophical system here. If you are interested, go on, investigate this and see whether there are these 7 steps. Maybe you can skip two of them and make it in 5. Maybe you will need a couple of more steps, 1.5 and 2.5 and all that. Make them. The first is Shubhecha, meaning pure, holy, auspicious desire. I am translating the word literally. Shubha, auspicious, good, holy, Ichha, desire. The entire Yoga-Vasistha, this monumental scripture of enormous volume, has at least one statement per page which emphasizes, give up all desires. All desires are dangerous. And here, Shubhecha. You must have Shubhecha. Why so? For a very simple reason, that even as blind acceptance of dogma, doctrine is destructive of intelligence, blind rejection is equally pernicious, dangerous. You see the common factor in both. Blind acceptance and blind rejection. What is the common factor? Blindness. What we are striving to do here is to arouse the intelligence. You cannot arouse the intelligence by any blind method, approach. Blind rejection or blind acceptance. Blind acceptance and blind rejection are two roads which converge on one point, a blind well. Oh, desire is bad. Oh, wait a moment. Wait. What sort of desire? Does it lead you towards an awakening of the inner intelligence, or does it lead you away from self-knowledge? If it leads you away from self-knowledge, it's no good. Leave it. If it leads you towards the awakening of intelligence, why not? Carry on. The example given is of fire. You want to destroy some old newspapers or rubbish, and you set fire to the whole thing. But if you want to stop that, destroy that fire, ultimately, what do? Keep quiet. As soon as that fire has consumed all that rubbish, it will die down. That is the nature of Shubhecha, or an auspicious desire. An auspicious desire for self-realization, God realization, self-knowledge, the Satori, samadhi. Will pursue that, reducing to ashes all the obstacles that stand in your way, and once that is done, it will quietly subside and go out. If it does not, it does not wholly desire. Mustn't lose sight of that. If that desire eventually does not burn itself out, it was not the right type of desire, it led you along wrong channels. Shubhecha. This is the first thing. But there is a problem. How does one cultivate Shubhecha? Is it something which can be acquired? Is it something which can be bought? Is it something which can be learned from books or gooks? Or the gooks being gurus. Can we learn it from somebody else? Pure desire. What? Leave alone pure desire. I don't think even impure desires can be learned from somebody else. If I don't love whiskey, can you make me love whiskey? Can love be learned from someone else? No. So, leave alone pure desire. No desire can be imparted. You can create the conditions necessary for her to fall in love, that's all. If she says no, sorry, too bad. How does Shubhecha arise then? If it cannot be learned, if it cannot be acquired, which obviously it cannot be, how does it arise? And this is, I wanted to say $6 million question, but I don't think it can even be bought for $6 million. The answer, there is no answer to it. And everyone who has dealt with this problem, with this question, has invariably and cleverly and in a very scholarly way skirted the issue and confused us so delightfully that we take the answer for granted. How does this auspicious desire, sacred desire, holy desire arise in a man's heart? One day he begins to think, says the Buddha, says Vasistha, why should I live like a fool? Why should I suffer in this world, this agony, sorrow, unhappiness, frustration? And why should I not resort to scriptures and masters and attain self-realization? My Guru Swami Shivananda also sang once, when you get knocks and blows in the daily battle of life, then your mind is duly turned towards the spiritual path. I have seen many people who have been knocked about, knocks and blows, but they don't turn towards spiritual path. Supposing someone gets a medical diagnosis, lung cancer. What does he think of? Does he think of God? Does he think of the surgeon? And a specialist? Supposing one has been robbed of all his money. Does he think of God? Oh, this is the world in which we are all cheated. What is it? that I must hereafter deposit some money in some other bank which cannot be robbed. Some statement is there in the Bible. Do a lot of charity and shore up. All my wealth must be in spiritual wealth in heaven. Do you think like that, or do you think, oh my God, how am I going to make some more money now to make up for the loss? That is, do unhappiness, poverty, sickness, dishonor, suffering, do these necessarily turn our minds towards God? Again, no. There are no absolutes in this funny world. There are no generalizations in this funny world. Some conditions turn some people's mind towards God and other people's minds directly in the opposite direction. Affluence or poverty. There are some affluent yogis. There are some poor scoundrels. There are some sick yogis. And there are some sick scoundrels. Nothing seems to be capable of being generalized. So, saying that the mere fact of our lives being plagued by pain and sorrow is sufficient to arouse this Shubhecha in us, this holy desire for self-realization in us, is not right. And then there is the other great statement that it is there in Buddha's teachings, it is there in the teachings of all holy men, including Vasistha. One day you go into a satsang, and in that satsang your mind is transformed. But why will you go into a satsang? If there is no spiritual stirring in you, why will you attend a satsang? Why will you be interested in anything at all except eat, drink and be merry? Or in carrying on life as best as you could. You may even want to clothe that doctrine with some kind of a duty or God ordained scheme. That God has given birth to me in order that I may drink this orange juice. That God has given me this, God has given me a position in society, God has given me a family, and to work for them and to do all this is my God ordained duty. This is what most of us do. Even they in whom there is a question. The others don't care. In whom even a little stirring of consciousness, awareness is there, even they tend to rationalize their lives and whatever they are doing and go on doing what they are doing. Why will they be inspired to investigate the meaning of life? And as I said earlier on, they may even invent half a dozen purposes to this life and get busy. The one thing that can really shake us in our very vitals, the contemplation of death, we have put aside completely and totally. I suppose if I begin talking about it, all of you will get up and walk away. It's indecent conversation. That's the only thing that can knock some sense into our heads. For all the rest, we have nice, neatly packaged answers and concepts and doctrines. So, why do we go to a satsang?